Wait! Hold up, everybody! Stop the presses! Do people still use presses? Is stop the presses, is that still a term? Morgan's is sitting there right now. He's just like, hey, come on! I still have a business! Yes, it is still a thing. Print media will survive forever. Now, okay, listen. Stop the presses. New One Piece information, okay? We got the official color scheme of ROCKS on the cover of Shonen Jump this week, alright? Are you ready to see it? No, you're not, but here we go. ROCKS's canonical hair color is white and blue. White and blue. You know what that means, ladies and gentlemen. A long-standing theory is probably true now. ROCKS is the father of Smoker. Smoker has white hair, ROCKS has white hair. And Smoker was born like 36 years ago, which means also ROCKS had to survive God Valley. It had to have happened. Oh man, Odo with the little hints every now and then, you know, I'm on to you, I got it, alright. This will be One Piece chapter 1166 review titled New Tales. Ah, yes, we have a color spread this week, and it's a lovely autumn scene where the Straw Hats and Yamato and Shinobu, I guess this takes place in Wano, so I'm assuming Hakumai, they're all hanging out in Hakumai with a bunch of, little animals and things like tanukis, and they're eating sweet potatoes. You put the sweet potatoes in a piece of foil and you cook them, and yeah, they're very delicious. I love sweet potatoes, Zoro's there, he's eating one. Nami appears to be wearing Kaku's hat, which, by the way, I've always liked Kaku's Cypher Pole Zero hat. It just looks like really fluffy. Same thing with Law's, like it's probably made out of the same material, except Law's is like the little cap and Kaku's is like a top hat. Yeah, that's a nice adorable. There's a bunch of foxes in the background that are like ninjas that are like doing a little dance. So that's a nice little color spread. That's a cool one. All right, where do we leave off? Oh yeah, ultimate final attack. Right, it's been 2 weeks. Okay, so Roger's got his sword and Garp's got his fist, and they're looking off at Demon ROCKS, and he's like, I am Demon ROCKS, this is how I talk now. I would all of the Domi Reversi demons should just talk like that. They should just be like, I am Demon Broggy, I am evil now. Just like, not very intimidating, but very intimidating. Anyway, they're charging up their attacks, right? And Roger has this brilliant idea. He's like, hey, Garp, how about we just hit him really hard? How about we like channel all the hockey we got and just boom, and just hit him really hard and hope it does something. And Garp's like, yeah, if it doesn't work, we're kind of screwed, but I got no better ideas, so let's just do it. So they do it, right? They release their final attacks, and now we see the aftermath of the battle. And in true Bleach fashion, anybody that's read Bleach knows this one. After any major fight like this, it immediately starts raining because the rain is symbolic of sadness and grief. Anyway, so we see ROCKS, Garp, and Roger all laying in the middle of the rubble of this battlefield after this final attack. Probably a few minutes after the attack, went off. Roger and Garp look both unconscious right now. Roger has Ace right next to him. He's laying in some pile of rubble. Garp is like face first in the ground, and they're both knocked out, okay? We see ROCKS there lying a short distance from them on his back, and he is still conscious. And he's just there, like, coughing, and he's like, oh man, did they break the curse? And we get a close-up of ROCKS's face, and the fangs are gone. And it's kind of hard to tell because he's in the foreground and Roger and Garp are in like the background a little bit on whether or not he like shrunk down back to his regular size, but he appears to have. And the wings on his cape, once again, kind of hard to tell because the wings were like part of his cape, but the fangs were definitely a sign that he's been Domi Reversi'd, and those are gone, and the evil expression kind of disappeared from his eyes as well. And so he's there, and he's just like, did they break the curse? Am I dead? Is this heaven? Kind of thing. And he's looking around and he's just like, oh man, I'm still alive. I gotta stay alive. If the curse is broken, I can't die yet. This island is, and then ROCKS kind of trails off. And then he just kind of looks, and through the fog and the rain, he sees 3 shadowy figures emerging. And it turns out that they are the God's Knights. Not the group that you wanted to, you know, save you at that moment. We get Saint Shepherd Summers, Saint Figarland Garling, and Saint Maffey. Satchel Maffey, I guess would be her name. So they're all arriving at once, and at that moment, Rocks is just looking at them, and it's just like, ah, damn it, yeah, oh, crap. All right, Roger, Garp, you gotta get out of here. You can't die here. Oh yeah, there's one more thing I wanted to say. This is the last thought that goes through Rox's head. I just wanted to say, thanks for stopping me. And then with that, Garling approaches Rox's body, pulls out his sword, and he brings it down. And that's it. That's the end of Rox. We see a splat of blood. The screen goes black because it's kind of like Rox's POV that we're seeing right now. Like we see his POV of like the God's Knights emerging of the fog and Garling over him with the sword and bringing it down, and then just blackness, just and a splat of blood. And that's apparently it. Okay, so few things to point out here. Number one, you can apparently negate the Domi Reversi by hitting people really hard with a lot of Conqueror's Hockey. Now, you might think that's an easy solution to the problem. Well, you gotta remember, it was Roger and Garp, 2 of like the strongest characters in the entire story, pooling all of their hockey together in one big combo attack that was able to accomplish this. Not something you're going to be seeing very often. Even right now in the story, with Luffy running around using Gear 5th, and Zoro has Conquers too, and Sanji might, I don't know. Let's say Sanji does have it, and Zoro and Sanji pull together their Conquerors and like, and then launch a big attack. They're not on the level of Garp and Roger at God Valley yet. I just highly doubt they are, so I don't think that's going to work. The second thing is we did start to see Rocks like disintegrate at the end of the last chapter. I brought up, you know, hey, we don't see him disintegrate completely. We don't see like his head fading away or anything like that. We see his body, you know, beginning to disintegrate, but also he might have the regeneration properties. It seems like some of the Domi Reversi monsters have that and some don't, or maybe they all don't. See, when Bragi got his arm blown off by Emu with the magic Satan gun, or whatever you want to call that thing, Bragi, the hand kind of reattached, but he didn't regrow one like we saw with the God's Knights. The hand just kind of like magically hovers around like where the arm used to be. You know what I mean? It's like it's floating there. It's not like he regrew an arm. So it's not the same thing as with the God's Knights. And then also when Rox's family was Domi Reversi'd, he beat them all, and they didn't seem to regenerate either, right? But we did see Rox beginning to disintegrate, and here we see him lying on the ground, and he's got his body back. I mean, like, once again, we don't even get a great view of it, but he has 2 legs, he has 2 arms, he has his chest, you know, his head is still there. It's not like there's, like, giant chunks missing out of him or something. So the implication is this big final combo attack between Roger and Garp obliterated part of him, like, whoa, a big flash of light, and then he started to regenerate, and then the curse faltered, and then it was able to be broken. So that's an interesting dilemma we find ourselves in here. Like, you hit somebody with Conquerors enough, it will override the curse. Okay. So then we have the God's Knights arriving, and the first thing Garling does is take a sword and kill Rox, as Rox himself is like, hey, come on, Roger, Garp, you gotta get out of here. Now, in the next scene that we're gonna see them in, because some time passes, there's like a little bit of a transition, Scopper and Rayleigh arrive. Scopper picks up Garp and runs off with him, and then Rayleigh picks up Roger, and they start running back to their ships, right? So the only thing I can assume is they arrived like right at this moment, because it makes 0 sense why Garling would kill Rox, get the finishing blow on him, and just, yep. Champion of God Valley. Yeah, Garling, I win. Rox, he was probably worth like 10 billion points, really, so I kind of win, right? But then you got Summers and Maffey there, And it's like, okay, Garp works for the Marines, sure. I mean, he was fighting against, Rocks, who was Domi reversing by Emu. But then you also have Roger, who's just a straight-up pirate. Not the king of the pirates at this point, but a pretty notorious pirate. You'd assume they would immediately like, ah, shit, 2-for-1 sale. We get to kill Rocks and Roger. Yeah! So maybe at that point right there, that's when Rayleigh and Gabon showed up and scooped him up and ran off, I assume. But yeah, that seems to be the end of Rocks. Not the best funeral in the world for him. Garling pretty much stole the kill. He was at like 1 HP, and then that's when Garling shows up. He's like, wait a minute, he's still technically alive? Oh, I got this. Whoa! I was like, all right. So, yeah, that's not fun. So then, yeah, how was Rox's life? We're gonna get some flashbacks with him later on in this chapter with Loki. I'm sure we'll probably see a little bit more of him maybe throughout the story through those flashbacks, maybe, possibly, I don't know. Or he could just be gone forever at this point. But yeah, he survived the attack with Roger and Garp, but Garling's the one that finished him off. But his legacy lives on. In Blackbeard. There we go. All right. So we, once again, like I said, the screen goes black with his POV, and then we transition to a little bit later where we see Scopper and Rayleigh just running through God Valley holding Garp and Roger. Yeah, there's some time passed there. I'm not sure if the God's Knights just killed Rox and took his body. Oh, by the way, what happened to Rox's body? Same question when Roger was killed. What, you don't think the world government would just give them a nice little burial, right? They took Roger's body somewhere after he was executed. They probably did the same thing to Rox too. So I don't know if they're like in Emu's big freezer. I don't know. Maybe they are, but they probably took Rox's body somewhere, I'm assuming. Okay. So Garp is there and he's like, how's Rox? And Gabon is the one carrying Garp, and Scopper is just like, oh, what, you're worrying about the enemy, huh? He's like, you idiots, you're my enemies too. And Gabon's like, good point, man, good point. And Roger says the same thing, like, Rayleigh, tell me, matey, what happened to Rox? And Rayleigh is just running, and I don't think he's crying. I think it's just the rain kind of falling on his face, but he's like, he was killed, Roger. He was killed. So yeah, it doesn't make any sense for them just to leave them there. So I'm thinking, Garling kills Rox. Rayleigh and Scopper arrive at that exact moment to see it happen. They see Garling with the sword in Rox's skull, and then they pick up Roger and Garp, and they're like, oh boy. And maybe there's a scene where they said something, or maybe they just skipped out. I'm not really sure about that. So, I guess this is, like, these are the Marines over, like, the intercom or, like, the Dendemushi or something. Like, hurry, the island's collapsing! Don't let the pirates escape! Roger's ship is on the moon! Fire! And we see all of God Valley sink into the ocean. And it's sort of similar a little bit to, like, the hole at Lelucia, but not exactly. For one thing, a giant laser cannon did not blast the island apart. It really does just seem like God Valley is collapsing in on itself, Like, the whole thing is just falling into a hole. Now, originally, when God Valley was first mentioned, way back during Wano, when Sengoku was kind of giving that little bit of exposition to the Marines, he says God Valley, like, disappeared that day. It vanished off the traces of the map. And I remember originally thinking, same thing with Laughtail, by the way. I don't know why my brain immediately goes to, oh, Laughtail cannot be found with any maritime sea chart. Oh, it's underwater then. Oh, God Valley disappeared from the maps. Oh, it must be underwater then. My mind immediately goes to that, but it was never actually clarified in both respects, like they're under the water, right? However, here, we do see that with God Valley. God Valley does indeed sink beneath the ocean, so there's physically nothing there. It's not the same thing like with Ohara, where Ohara got Buster called, the whole place got burned down, but there's still a physical island that you can go and visit, like Vegapunk and Dragon did like 6 months after the Buster call. Right now, there is no more God Valley. God Valley's gone. It is just collapsed in on itself, all right? So we basically now have the ending narration of the God Valley battle, of the God Valley event. Let's see here. Let's put on my best narration voice. This event would leave no mark on the pages of history. The crumbling island was swallowed by the waves and consumed by fog. Like curtains closing on a grand stage, that was the essence of the God Valley incident. The silence in the incident's wake lasted only a moment before a massive bolt of lightning split the very heavens. And with that, the curtain rose for new tales to unfold. Okay, I'm good. So we see God Valley collapsing. Then we get a double-page spread of the narrator as we see all the, prime characters of God Valley going their separate ways. The Rocks pirates are now effectively disbanded. They were kind of broken up even before Rocks died, but now that Rocks died, they're effectively broken up for good. I wonder what happened with Rocks' ship. Because all the Rocks pirates, when they were leaving, were like, we gotta find some ships to steal. And I'm like, guys, you got a perfectly good ship right there. I know it's kind of world infamous and the Marines are gonna be chasing after you, but have you seen Rocks' ship? Dude had style, right? So I wonder what happened to the damn thing. If anybody picked it up, I don't really know. So we see Garp resting in the med bay of a Marine ship. He's unconscious. We see Roger likewise in the Oro Jackson sleeping on a bed. We see Whitebeard on a random pirate ship. I'm assuming it's Polo Graham's pirate ship. He's looking off into the distance very somberly. We see Big Mom on a pirate ship. She's just smirking. She's just like, mama, this begins another adventure, right? So she doesn't really give a shit about what's going on. She cares, but she's not as somber of it as Whitebeard. Whitebeard seems to have the expression on his face of like, Rocks, it was good to know you. Whitebeard's the kind of guy that would hold like a toast to Rocks. I don't see that from Big Mom. Big Mom is just like, all right, let's go, right? We see Kaido just in dragon form flying through the sky. He's like, oh man, I don't have a boat. Oh, wait a minute, I can fly, I'm a dragon now, woo-hoo! And he starts flying away with a smirk on his face like, I am the protagonist of this story now. Woro, 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 woro. And Shenron flies off into the distance. We see Dragon there holding a gun on a Marine ship. Yeah, he's gonna get thrown in jail in a moment here, but hey, he gave it his best try. We see Baby Shanks sleeping in a treasure chest. We see Ivankov and Ginny, kind of taking care of Kuma. I'm assuming this is at the Sorbet Kingdom, because the island is now gone. It is collapsed, so they have to have left by now. So they're probably at Sorbet, like have just recently arrived. Kuma's really winded, really exhausted. He used his Devil Fruit power a lot to save like 500 people. So Ginny and Ivankov are like, hey, just take it easy, Kuma. Just rest up a little bit. You were the MVP. You saved those random people that I'm sure won't be relevant. Eris and Teach. Yeah. And then we do see Eris and Teach. We don't see where they're at, actually. Oda kind of draws a background for all these other characters, even if it's just like pirate ship or in a Marine ship or Shanks in the treasure chest. For Teach and Eris, we just see a white background in this one little panel, okay? And that's when the narration box in that panel was the curtain rose for new tales to unfold, all right? So this God Valley really did serve as like a nexus point, very much like how the execution of Goldie Roger, and I would argue also Marineford, kind of had like a big shockwaves of change after this event, right? So, we have this moment, and then we have Teach and everybody growing up in this era now, and then we're going to have the execution of Goldie Roger 24 years ago. That's going to kick off the Great Pirate Era, and then eventually we're going to have Marineford, which is the death of Whitebeard and Ace, and like the reign of Blackbeard begins at that point, right? Okay, so that's kind of where we're at right now. And oh my god, my button fell off my jacket. Oh my god! I'm gonna have to bust out my sewing kit. Oh man, the button finally fell off! Alright, let's hold on a minute. Hold on. I know Rocks died and that's sad, but can we have a moment to mourn this button? Alright, moment of silence. Okay. Alright, I'm ready. I'm ready to continue. Okay, so we have that moment as the Oro Jackson sails away, being chased by a bunch of Marine ships. They obviously don't catch them. Can you believe if that's the way it went down? Oh yeah, we fought this big battle at God Valley. Oh, a bunch of random Marine ships caught Roger, and that was the end of their adventure right there. No, they're sailing away. So we cut to, I guess, the next day. It has to be the next day. It cannot be multiple days, and we'll see why in a moment. So the rest of the Roger crew are like, come on, let's open the treasure. It's like Christmas morning. And they're like, not yet, not yet. We gotta wait for the captain to wake up. Still, how long is he gonna sleep in? It's like, he did just fight a massive battle that drained, like, all of his Conqueror's hockey yesterday. Yeah, well, he needs to get his lazy ass out of bed. It's almost noon. Come on. Roger wakes up. Roger gets up, and he walks out of his room. Gloriosa is in the background, along with Mr. Momoma. And Mr. Momoma is there. I don't know, actually. He's not the doctor. Well, okay. Crocus eventually ends up becoming the doctor of the Roger Pirates. That is not for like another decade or so, though. Crocus does not join until their final journey, like 26, 27 some years. No, it was at least 27 years ago because he was there at Ed War. So it had to have been a little bit before that. But yeah, he is currently not the doctor. So maybe Mr. Monoma, the guy everybody thought was Morgans, who is not Morgans in his human form, he might be the doctor right now. And then Gloriosa's also back there like, oh, Roger, I'm so happy you survived. Anyway, Roger walks out and he's all bandaged. He's just like, sorry to worry you guys. I know you couldn't sleep at night, but I was a tough as nails pirate. I was able to survive. And the other Roger pirates are like, yeah, we're thrilled about that. Whatever, Roger, good, you're still alive. Anyway, check this out. And Roger's like, don't you even care about your own captain, matey? And it's like, no, we do, sure, totally. But check this out, Shocky is safe and sound. And we see Rayleigh and Shocky, and Rayleigh's there with his arm around Shocky, and Shocky's just like, so she's happy. Oh, by the way, some people have pointed out, I'm not really actually sure, I think this is probably that. Rayleigh has a scar when we see him shirtless when he swam across the entire comm belt. Remember that feat? Yeah, so he has a scar like right here along like his collarbone, and we see the scar right here. So it's probably the scar he received at God Valley, I would assume. But anyway, hey, check it out, Roger. Yeah, Shocky's safe. Also, we got all this treasure. And, Roger's like, wow, what a great haul. That's good. At least, when we were fighting against evil demon rocks, you guys were making yourselves busy. So they're about to start opening the treasure chest and everything when all of a sudden they start hearing a voice. They start like, wah, goo goo gaga, and Roger's like, what? Where's that sound coming from? It sounds like a baby. It's coming from the treasure chest. I hope that... What could possibly be sounding like a baby in the treasure chest? Oh, it's a baby! So they open up the treasure chest, and it's the exact same scene. Well, not the exact same scene, but the same basic story, like, panels from the little pamphlet they gave you, little chapter with film red. So we see Roger and Spencer and Rayleigh and Scopper and Aereo. Aereo's in frame, too. Way to go, Aereo. And they're opening the chest, and so from Shanks' POV, you see that. And then you see baby Shanks in the chest, like, ooh, gaga, and that's it. So there are slight differences. There are some slight differences. One difference is that the pajamas that Shanks is wearing are different. The ones in the movie, he had the designs of like stars and moons on them and things like that. Kind of interesting because Garling's hair eventually will be the shape of a moon. And considering the Gorosei are all like named after celestial bodies, like Mars, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, it would be interesting with Garling because he's replacing Saturn, doesn't represent Saturn anymore, he represents the moon. So, yeah, there's an option there. And of course, the pajamas here don't have any designs on them, right? And Roger, we do see a scene in the movie. I don't think, it might be in the pamphlet as well, but in the movie we see a brief scene where Roger is opening the treasure chest and we see this POV, and Roger has the mustache at that point because they just assumed like, oh, Roger had the mustache, but no, he didn't. So canonically, when they found Shanks, yeah, Roger did not have the mustache and his pajamas did not have the stars on them or whatever, but I don't think that's super relevant, but yeah, it's the same basic panel that Oda drew for Film Red, just altered a little bit to make more sense, with the continuity, right? And so that's the story of how Shanks joined the Roger Pirates. Yeah, it's like, oh, baby. Also, by the way, Shanks was sleeping very comfortably on top of a bunch of, like, gold and jewels and chalices and gold bars. That could not be comfortable to sleep on. But Shanks was fine, and they didn't even notice for, like, a whole day. So, yeah, okay. That's what I mean, but I said, like, Roger has to have waken up the next day, because otherwise I think they would have started to notice the crying in the chest, earlier, after Shanks woke up from that horrible experience. Anyway, so now we're cutting over to the shockwaves felt around the world. We kind of go all over the world where the World Economic Journal is spreading all over the place. This is like Morgan's in his early years. The government basically paid him a massive sum of money, which he probably used to start up his whole operation, with the flying teapot and the news coups and everything like that, probably from this incident. And so he starts reporting that, like, oh yes, Garp, hero of the Marines, saves everyone. everybody, and he doesn't really print about anything else. Rocks pirates wiped out. That was like the headline of the newspaper that particular week. Predictably, news coverage was falsified. Only one aspect of the story was highlighted, and that was the heroism of Garp. So obviously, Morgans is not going to write about the Celestial Dragons or the God's Knights or the human hunting competition or Roger or Rocks is, turning into a demon creature or Saturn being there or Emu being there, And remember, Morgans was not there. Morgans was not on the island to witness all of this. This was basically the government going to him because he kind of like tied them behind the back a little bit because of his like manipulation, and like Ginny and him were kind of like conversing back and forth on like that information and that intel. So Morgans would be like, hey, I could report about everything if you want me to, or you could give me a sum of money and I'll print whatever you want me to, but it's going to cost you kind of situation. So that was how Morgans ended up, forming his like media empire. Anyway, so we see people from all over the world that are rejoicing that, Rocks is dead, finally! And then he's like, I knew it! Vice Admiral Garp is the strongest for sure! And there's people praising Garp's name all over the world, like, Garp! 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 We knew he had it in him, And now we cut over to Navy HQ. This is Marineford still, right? And so Garp is waking up and he is ripping apart the article in the newspaper. He's just like, what the hell is this crap? I can't wait to get my hands on this Morgans fellow and choke the life out of him, right? So, wow, that's interesting on how that would have went if Garp immediately went and murdered Morgans, how the world would be different after that point. Probably somebody else would have rose to take his place in the media world, right? Okay. Anyway, Sengoku walks in, and Sengoku's like, hey, relax, Garp. First of all, he's just a kid, pretty much, like printing a newspaper, but he just did that because that's what the government paid him to write. So that's the situation with that. So we get a scene here with Sengoku and Garp in the medical bay at Marineford. By the way, nice little addition. In the background, you can see Dr. Fishbone. You remember Dr. Fishbone, right? Dr. Fishbone actually has a crazy amount of lore that he said. He is the doctor that was present after Marineford that was tending to Kobe. Kobe was there waking up, and Dr. Fishbone was like, what's that? You got a bunch of visions of a bunch of dead people. You heard their screaming souls like a bunch of flickering candles as they all went out at the same time? Yeah, looks like you got a textbook case of the observation hockey. Yeah, it's something all the vice admirals are capable of using. You should probably go to talk to Garp about that. I'm not really an expert on hockey. Here's a prescription for some, like, I don't know, a Vicodin or something. Have a good one. And then Dr. Fishbone, we see him in the background in his younger years. That's actually really cool. So yeah, it was from him that he said that we got that piece of lore that all vice admirals are capable of using observation and armament hockey. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Fishbone. And this is at Marineford, so he would be there. That's really nice attention to detail. Okay, so we don't get a scene where Garp kind of explains everything to Sengoku, but Garp and Sengoku are like best friends at this point. So I'm going to assume Garp did tell Sengoku everything that he, at least from his perspective, on God Valley. He probably told him about the native hunting competition, and he told him about Saturn, the Gorosei being there, and the Shadow Monster, and Rocks being evil. Like I don't see any reason why Garp wouldn't have told Sengoku this. Like, he just woke up, his best friend is right there. He's like, Sengoku, I gotta tell you about some crazy shit that went down. So we don't know for certain, but I'm assuming that's the way it happened. Sengoku begins to talk to Garp about this. And he's like, Garp, the world government and the Marines are massive organizations, right? And if you count the members of nations' armies, we're talking about tens of millions of soldiers worldwide. Okay, so pause for a moment there because we got a number on that. Okay, Oda, listen really quick. We learned about the name of the planet. Okay, you told us the name of the planet is Blue Planet, and in the most recent SBS, you gave us a timeline. We know what year it is now. Can you give us a world population? Just a little bit more. Can you just give us like world population statistics now on the Blue Planet, please? That'd be great. That'd be awesome. Can you give us a census? Like this is how many humans live here. This is how many fishmen and merfolk live on the planet. This is how many giants there are. That'd be great if you give us a census for the next SBS. All right, that'd be awesome. Anyway, so Sengoku is including all of the Marines, which you have to understand is a massive organization just in and of itself. And then we have world government, employees, which that covers everything from like Cypherpole agents all the way to remember Corgi? Corgi was that government employee that was showing up at Water 7. I don't think he was a member of Cypherpole, and if he was, it would have been like Cypherpole 1 or 2. Like he was small potatoes, really. I think he was just like a standard government employee, and they wear like the suits and everything. So you got to factor in like all the Cypherpole agents across all of their agencies, and then there's just regular like low-ranking government employees like Corgi. And then he's also including, remember, every allied nation of the world government, or I assume most of them, have their own armies. Right? Like, that was kind of part of the world military draft that Akainu did over the time skip, where he's like, we need to strengthen the power of the Marines, so we're gonna go to the individual armies of these kingdoms, of the allied nations of the world government, and we're just gonna start poaching their strongest members. Right? We're just gonna be like, oh, Fujitora, you're pretty strong, come with us. Oh, Aramaki, you're pretty strong. Now, their situations were a little different. Aramaki was in prison at the time, and Fujitora was basically on another island after he it was part of like he was like a general in like a failed coup, basically, and he had to go to like a different island and was like a bodyguard where he got recruited. But that's what the government did, right? So like, remember this, you got the Marines, you got the world government, then you have all these individual armies, okay? And so Sengoku is saying this numbers in the tens of millions of soldiers. It's impossible to account for everyone's actions and motivations in why they're part of the Marines or why they're doing this. I agree, Sengoku, in the regard of, like, there are going to be corrupt-ass Marines. To just say that, like, yeah, there's corrupt Marines, nothing really we can do about that. All right, that's a little bit just kind of sweeping the issue under the rug a little bit. I agree, there's ones that are really corrupted, but you could probably do some things about that. You shouldn't just be so quick to just ignore that. But then he also goes on to say, if the top brass ever do strike me as insane, so he's talking, I guess, about the people that are above them. I mean, they are both vice admirals at this point, so the only people that are really bossing them around are, like, senior vice admirals at this point that have been in the Marines for a very long time. Like how, like, right now, Suru is a vice admiral, but she's, like, one of the most high-ranking members, so she can kind of, like, order around, like, lower-ranking vice admirals, too. But, like, them, and then the admirals, obviously, and then the fleet admiral. So they're pretty high up in the organization right now, but even then they're saying that, like, yeah, if the top brass ever strike me as insane, I'd simply turn a blind eye to it. Okay, this is the part that really confuses me. Might just be a translation thing. I gotta make sure to see where that's going from there. But basically what Sengoku is saying is like, hey, Garp, listen, there's a lot of people in these organizations, right? If somebody above us that's giving orders is kind of insane and doing crazy shit, I probably should just turn a blind eye to it, in my opinion. And it is like, did Garp explain the fucking Eldritch Spider Demon monster? Because I feel like if he did, that is not the kind of response Sengoku should give. It's like, Sengoku, you'll never believe it. Giant Eldritch evil spider monster was like on God Valley and was like possessing rocks and made him turn evil with like demonic Satan hell powers. Yeah, Garp, well, there's a lot of people in the Marines and, the upper management is crazy. Am I right? Am I right? I probably should just ignore that and just keep going. No, that is not the proper response to hearing that your government is run by evil eldritch monsters. That is not, unless Sengoku is like, well, if Garp doesn't know. like Sengoku walks away like, wait a minute. And then Garp starts, hey, this is not the reaction that, like, only just from my perspective, because Garp immediately starts beating the shit out of Sengoku. Garp is just like, damn it, you're just another fool chasing a promotion. How dare you, Sengoku? And Sengoku is like, shut up. What good can you do just barking from the bottom of a cliff? We're low rank, Garp. We might be vice admirals, but we don't even stand close to being the most, prominent people in the world. You can't do much at the bottom of the cliff. That's Sengoku's argument. And so they're barking and yelling at each other's faces, and Garp is like, if you ever stray from the path of good and get corrupted, I'll kill you myself, Sengoku. And Sengoku's just like, how reassuring. I guess I have a good friend in you then. And then they just start beating the crap out of one another. And Sengoku's like, so, you're not quitting then, Garp, huh? Garp's like, he just kind of reaffirms the same thing he said earlier, where he's like, idiot, there are still things at the bottom of that cliff that need a guard dog. Okay, so even if I am greatly missing the point that Sengoku was trying to miss here, the idea is Sengoku's values and how he views the Marines and how he views the path of justice is very antithetical to the way Garp views it, because they ended up going to blows over this shit, so it was clearly something that they disagreed on vehemently. But they're still friends, and they still hang out together. We see that later on in the story. Sengoku eventually ends up getting promoted to Admiral, and then eventually Fleet Admiral. So, yeah, I mean, like, Garp having the attitude of, like, I'm not getting promoted, I don't want to be an Admiral, fuck that. You know, I'm gonna go and protect the little guys in the Marines and try to save them from that kind of corruption, right? I'm gonna do the best I can. You watch, Sengoku. And Sengoku's mentality is just like, hey, man, it honestly kind of reminds me a lot of, like, Kizaru and some of the other admirals. I guess Sengoku has the mentality for it. We're just cogs in the machine, man. We're just cogs in the machine. You know, that was kind of Kizaru's mentality at Egghead. Akainu, I feel like, okay, the weirdest thing about Akainu is I feel like he really didn't view himself as a cog in the machine. He did want to change shit. Now, you could definitely point out that, like, the way Akainu wants to change shit is not in the right direction that it should be, but he did want to change shit. And he was like, I'm going to become the Fleet Admiral, and I'm going to be the one to make the rules. And I think Akainu was just a little oblivious to how little power even the Fleet Admiral ultimately has. I think Akainu was like, I'm going to be the new Fleet Admiral, and I'm going to get shit done my way. He becomes the Fleet Admiral, and he does start to try to do things his way, but I think the Gorosei are like, hey, don't forget about who's in charge here, you know? You know, like, and then so that really irritates the hell out of Akainu. But I would say that Akainu has a little bit of a different mentality, at least, than Sengoku here, and maybe even Kizaru as well, where he doesn't view himself as just, well, you know, the upper management says, so, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. Just probably best to ignore it and just keep doing ignore the evil Eldritch monsters, Garp, and just kind of keep doing Marine stuff. And it's like, no. Now, Sengoku might also be saying this from a place of preservation, because he did bring up that thing to Garp earlier when they were communicating over the Den Mushi, like, yeah, I remember there was a Marine that brought up some shit of this before, and then he just mysteriously disappeared and we never saw him again. That Marine might have not have just been a random Marine. That might have been like Sengoku's brother. That might have been like Sengoku's best friend or some shit, you know what I mean? And just like, yeah, I knew a guy. We started together. Good guy, good Marine, loyal dude. He started asking some questions and he's not around anymore. So maybe Sengoku's saying this from a perspective of like, hey man, we're at Marine HQ right now. Maybe keep it on the fucking down low, okay? You know what I mean? And like, I don't know. I know what's going on. I'm not saying shit because I don't want to die, all right? And it was just like, not like my friend Jeremy. Jeremy the Marine. Moment of silence. Okay, that's what we'll call the random Marine that went missing. We'll just say Jeremy the Marine until further notice. Probably learn more about that guy during Sengoku's backstory if we ever get that. Okay. So that's the stuff, what's going on with them. Then we cut to Elbaf! Should I put my cloak on? It's over there. I'll put the cloak on back when the flashback's over, I'll put the cloak back on. All right, how about that? All right, so we cut over to the Primordial Realm where Loki is down there and he's just smashing a bunch of rocks up with his club and he's crying and being upset because he heard about Rox' death. And he's remembering a moment that he had with him and where all the times that Loki was trying to ask Rox to join his crew and Rox was just like, how many times do I gotta tell you, Pipsqueak? I don't want a brat on my crew. Get out of here. And so Loki just starts crying. He's like, I don't want to be on your crew, Rox. Why? And then Rox is just hanging out next to the pub, next to Ida's pub. And then he's just like, oh man, what the hell is this? I keep trying to get Harald to join my crew, and he won't even give me the time of day. But his pain in the ass, snot-nosed brat won't leave me alone. This is so dumb, right? And so anyway, Loki tells him, is like, Rox, I think you're the sun god, Nika. And then Rox is just like, huh? Sun God? He's like, yeah, he's a warrior of liberation that's going to destroy the world while laughing. Okay, so Loki appears to be a follower of the first age of the Harley, it seems. We can compartmentalize this, all right? There is the version of Nika that is like kind of a destroyer that will hearken in the end of the world with a laugh. And then there's the version from the Second Age that's more about giving hope and, liberation to slaves. And then there's a third version that's kind of the one that lines up with Luffy the best, that's sort of just like a trickster god of laughter, a little bit, right? And they all, laughter is a thread between all of them, but like what they actually do is another story. Could there be like, these are different individuals that have eaten the sun god fruit, and one of them destroyed the world, and another one freed slaves, and another one is just that Luffy's version is just like the laughter trickster god that turns into a bunch of wacky shit. You know what I mean? Yeah, and like freedom is also a thread there that is connecting all of them, but in different ways there. So Rocks tells Loki, destroy the world? What are you talking about? I'm not out to destroy the world. I'm aiming to be king of the world. Besides, if anyone's got that sort of power, it's your dad. It's Harald. And so Rocks kind of tells Loki this, and this is like one of the last things Loki remembers that he's going to like carry with him the rest of his life. Listen up, Loki. Somewhere out there, there's a group called the Galleria Giants. They're an outrageous band of ravagers, and if anyone can put them back into play, it's your pops, it's your old man. I'm gonna continue to rally the rogues of the world together in the meantime. So just imagine if Harald and I teamed up, what could possibly stop us then? And Loki's like, wow, that's awesome! So why aren't you and my dad friends already? Why aren't you going out there in the world and doing things? And Rocks just kind of sits down on the edge of the cliff and he's like, because of love, Loki. Because of love. And Loki's just question mark because he's a kid. He doesn't understand, like, what answer is that? Like, he doesn't get it. And he says, but I'm going to come back again and again, Loki. I'm going to meet with your dad 100, 200, how many times I need to meet with him until he finally accepts my cause, right? And so we see Loki staring at a newspaper. Now, he's a giant, so the newspaper takes up, like, it's like the size of a postage stamp for him. But he's, like, looking at the newspaper, and he's like, wow, Rocks is dead! Okay. So the reasoning why Rocks gives to Loki on like why him and Harald have not joined up yet is because of love. And I'm assuming he means the love that Harald feels for his countrymen, for Elbaf itself, and the goals that he wants in the future, and what he wants the world to not see the giants as like brutal ruffians and things like that. So I assume it might be something else, but that's what I'm going with. So with that being said, we now go back to Harald's story. Harald was, the main focus of this, and we took a little break for a while, and like a flashback in a flashback of a flashback, but now we're getting back to it. We're getting back to it. So Harald is on some random island in the Grand Line, and I guess there's another giant there that's doing a lot of the same stuff that Harald did back in his younger years, where he's just like, he's doing the like, fee, fi, fo, fum, I am big angry giant, I crush you humans because I can, bam. And then Harald gets wind of this, and he shows up, and he's just like, you still don't get it, don't you? Ah! And he's just like beating the shit out of this other giant, like pummeling him into the ground. And just like, this is why everyone thinks we're brutes! Boom! This shit right here! Knock it the fuck off! He starts pummeling the crap out of this giant into the ground, and all the people of the island, they're just like, oh, Harald's here to save us from the how dare you! It's like, it's just like they're backing up, and it's just like, this is, Harald, please, he's already, oh God, he's already dead! It's just like, damn. So Harald's definitely letting out a lot of his anger right now over the whole Rocks incident. He's just like, I just didn't want to jeopardize my chances of joining the world government. I wanted to go save him. I wanted to help my friend, but I didn't, and now he's dead. He just keeps punching this poor guy, right? He's calling him trash and just like, you're the ones that were responsible for everyone thinking we're just a bunch of warfaring brutes. And the entire town is running away. Harald is not promoting his case very well, okay? You should be more peaceful like I am. It's just like, oh, okay. And so, yeah, this event doesn't go over too well. Oh, he ends the conversation as everyone's running away by screaming to the heavens, there's no turning back now! I will never forgive a giant who does evil! And, yeah, so the next next day in the newspaper, headline reads, Giant King Harald Loses It. And it's just like, yeah, this has to be a lot of whiplash for the people of the One Piece world, I gotta admit, because they're like, every time they're looking at the paper, it's like, hey, this King Harald guy doesn't seem like a bad dude. He helped out a bunch of islands. Oh, King Harald is a crazy man. All right, cool. It's like, oh, he's helping people out again. He's looking to join the world government. Well, that's good. He's changing his ways. Ah, he's pummeling giants into the ground on an island while shouting that he's peaceful. Okay, so he's crazy then. Like, it's just like a back and forth with them. It just be like, is this Harald guy good or bad or just insane? Like, which one is it? By the way, at the end of this chapter, I think a solid argument could be made for insane, all right? So, yeah. He reduces this giant to, like, I don't think he kills him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did, because it looks pretty bad. He's very unconscious, and everybody in the town is just like, okay, this Harald and the Giants of Elbaf, and maybe everything we read about them might be true, because this is ridiculous. This guy is like brutally killing this guy. And so, brief little aside, this is actually right in the middle of this, we cut to the Navy Detention Center. We cut to the DIC, where we see Dragon in a jail cell. So he's not an impel down. This is like a Marine that's like awaiting like court-martial probably. So they don't throw him in like the pirate prison. They throw him in like a detention center, right? So Garp shows up, and Dragon's there, and he's like, Dad, I'm gonna quit the Marines. Garp's like, yeah, okay. And he throws him the key to the cell, throws him the key so he can escape. And then Dragon's like, I despise you, Dad. Okay, later. And then he leaves. That's the scene. So that's all that's there for, is to show that like Dragon was detained, thrown in jail. Garp helps him escape. Dragon leaves, starts up what would become the Freedom Fighters, which would eventually evolve into the Revolutionary Army, right? So the only thing about this, Garp, talk to your son. All right, like, I get it. It's a scene where Garp feels shame about this too, so he doesn't want to talk about it. He feels like he's in the wrong here, like, overwhelmingly. But, like, here's the thing, Garp. Just tell your son about what happened. You know, tell him about the evil Eldritch monster. Tell him about Rocks. Tell him about this shit. Dragon probably won't listen at this moment, but that's fine. At least as long as you're telling him the story of like, all right, Dragon, there's some context you need to know about what went on in God Valley. I don't care, Dad. I don't give a shit. It's like, yeah, whatever. You don't have to listen. I'm going to tell you the story, all right? You can just sit there and plug your ears if you want to. I'm telling you the story, okay? So then Garp could at least tell him the story, and then Dragon would probably not listen to him or not believe him and just be like, yeah, whatever, I don't care. I'm leaving the Marines. Screw you, Dad. I'm like, all right, fine. Well, I told you the story, so here's the key. Drops him the key, and then Garp leaves. Dragon escapes. Give it a couple of days, a couple of weeks for him to calm down, and then Dragon, because he's like 17 at this point, he's a little hot-headed. After a few days, he calms down and is like, okay, maybe the stuff Dad told me about the evil Eldritch monsters, maybe that actually had something to do with something. Huh. Maybe I should have listened to him a little bit more then. Huh. Okay. That's interesting. You know, I just, the scene here where Garp is just like, hey, son, I hate you, Dad. Okay, that's fair. Here's a key. You know, it's just like, no, come on, just tell him the story. Talk to your child. Communicate. So at least later, even if he doesn't listen to you and he doesn't believe you, he has that information. And then later on in his life, he can reevaluate it and make a decision for his own. Because it really does seem that Dragon did not know about Emu or Saturn or anything like how the Gorosei really operated all the way up until when Sabo directly saw it and came back and reported. Dragon was like, wait, there shouldn't be someone ruling the world. Wait a minute. If Garp could have maybe given some information, he doesn't know the whole story, but he could have told him the information about evil shadow monster possessing rocks. That might have given Dragon some hints for later on exactly how this goes. But whatever. Anyway, we get that scene there. So I just wanted to bring that up. Communicate! But anyway, we cut back over to Elbaf, where we're on the shore of where Ida's tavern is. Harald is there, Ida is there, and Jarl is there, as well as Loki and Hyrudin when they were kids. This is the scene where we saw it earlier in Silhouette, where Harald was like, Hyrudin, Loki, both of you are my precious sons. You must get along while I am gone. You know, that's that scene here. And so Harald has decided, he's like, I have made up my mind. Elder Jarl, I don't care about appearances anymore. Well, I mean, that little tantrum you threw, a few days ago, that kind of ruined your appearance, but okay. He's like, I don't care about appearances anymore. I know what I must do. I know what I must do, Elder Jarl. And so he says goodbye to Loki and Hyrudin, his precious sons. He gets on his ship. He sails directly to Marine HQ. Directly to Marineford. Oh boy, Harald, what are you doing? Harald, what are you doing? This is not a good move. All right, he goes right to Marineford. He shows up. The Marines are like, King Harald, apologies, sir. My superiors, or you are not, this is a Marine space. You cannot just show up here and land. He lands, and then Harald landed. It's like, okay, where's this going? Harald just stomps right out in front of, in the plaza at Marineford. All the Marines are like, hey, whoa, 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 get back, get back, get back. And it's just like, I am tired of this. I'm like, oh God, he's tired of this. He's finally gonna kill us all. And so Harald gets down on his knees, grabs his horns, and just rips them off right there. And he holds them out and presents them to the government. And he's just like, world government, please listen to my plea. Allow me to atone for sins of the past 1,000 years. I apologize for every wrong the giants have ever committed. The children of Elbaf right now are being raised to be peaceful and not warfaring, so that one day we may walk hand in hand with humanity. All I do is please allow me to join. Let Elbaf join your ranks. I'll do whatever it takes to atone for our sins. I'll even become a slave. Then we have a scene of Emu. Just one last final panel of Emu's iconic eye. Just... End of the chapter. No break next week. See what I mean? See what I mean? Okay? The case for insanity might be, dude literally ripped off his horns. You could look at that as dedication, or you could look at that as, okay, I've made a lot of videos where, in the other reviews, talking about Harald and his stance on these things, and I made a video talking about it, directly. Okay, so let's go do an overview really quick of what Harald wants. Okay, what does Harald want? Harald wants to change the ways of Elbaf. Elbaf has been a warfaring nation for a very long time, going out to sea, terrorizing humans, and just ravaging everywhere, okay? He falls in love with Ida. Ida kind of shows him a different light. It's sort of like a Dracula and Lisa story from Castlevania a little bit. A little bit here, a little bit, okay? So he's like, oh, I was doing wrong. I am the king of Elbaf now. I want to open up Elbaf to trade and to commerce and to allegiances with other kingdoms. It's time to step out of the dark ages, as it were, where we're just pillaging everything. And it's time to change the way that Elbaf operates. That is a noble goal. Got no problems with that. That seems like a noble goal. You're trying to change. You don't want giants to go around and murder everybody anymore. That's not a bad idea, Harald. That's not bad. And you had that scene where there was a drought and a bad winter at Elbaf, and Harald was going out and helping people beforehand, and they repay his kindness, where all these different kingdoms send aid and relief and stuff to Elbaf to help them. And so clearly the plan was working. Okay. What was the thing that was the thorn? What was the thing that was preventing you from doing this, Harald? It was and has always been the world government. Harald was like, I keep trying to ally with these other kingdoms and they seem like they're amenable to doing it, but the world government keeps stopping me. Well, I guess we gotta join them. There's no other option. And so Harald becomes laser focused on I have to join the world government. That's the only way that Elbaf is gonna get into the way I want it to be. I have to join the world government, right? That's the way it has to be. Harald, please, for the love of God, for the love of Othin, has it ever occurred to you, even once, if Harald was here right now, this is what I would be asking the dude, straight up. Harald, has it ever occurred to you, even a little bit, the world government is maybe massively corrupt and they're just going to use the giants for their own ends and make you all slaves? Has it ever occurred to you that maybe that might be what the world government's trying to do? And the world government is preventing you from allying with other nations because they don't like that? And it's just like, maybe the world government are the bad guys. Did it ever occur to Harald about that? Because it seems like it hasn't. It seems like, it's like, man, I keep wanting to ally with these nations, but the world government keeps stopping me. Oh, well, guess I can't beat them, I guess join them, I guess. I mean, there's nothing else to do. To the point where you are mutilating yourself and demanding to be made a slave. Do you understand the implications of that? Because, like, I don't care if I have to be a slave. I want the world government to be accepting of Elbaf. It's like, Harald, dude, do you realize what you have just done? You've literally walked into Emu's front door. Like, Marineford is the front door. You go all the way up to the red line. You've walked in the front door and you were just like, I am the king of Elbaf. Make me a slave so that all of Elbaf can be part of the world government. And Emu's probably just like, oh shit, I can make you all slaves? Nice. That was easy. Holy shit. It's like, I think what Harald was going for here was I will reduce myself to whatever you need me to reduce myself to. Which, by the way, not the disposition of a king, especially a king that's supposed to be like the person leading these people. You know what I mean? It's just like he's like, ah, yes, King Harald, noble king, that demanded that the government make him a slave. Yeah, not a great move. Not a great move, Harald. I understand kind of, sort of where he's coming from, like at least from his perspective, but it's a really dumb idea, okay? You're basically saying, like, yeah, make the king of Elbaf a slave. What could possibly go wrong there? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not like, wait a minute. Me, Harald being a slave would make other giants slaves as well? Oh, I didn't expect that. It's just like, duh. So, yeah, we'll see where this goes from here. I guess. It's a cool scene. Like, in terms of the artwork, in terms of, like, you can see the anguish on Harald's face, where he just literally doesn't know what else to do, so he arrives at ripping off his horns and demanding this shit, right? Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. This is an intense one. This is a different direction. I mean, like, we knew that he was going to rip off his horns at some point, and we knew he was upset. He's also very upset over ROCKS' death. He is mourning ROCKS' death, so maybe that accounts for some of this too. But like, Harald, this isn't the direction to go, man. This isn't how you do this. This is just asking for trouble. You're basically rolling up and asking Emu to just take control of your entire nation. Not cool. All right. Anyway, that's the chapter. That's the end of the One Piece chapter 1166, the end of ROCKS. The beginning of the end of Harald, too. So there's that, too. So yeah, what did you think about this? Let me know down below. Also, we got ROCKS' official color scheme now, so maybe he's the father of Buggy. Yeah, Buggy. That probably makes more sense than Smoker. So maybe that, yeah. But damn, yeah, this is a crazy one. All right, later everybody. Techig signing out. Bye.